Well, look who's back with us, Senator Eric Schmitt from Senate Commerce. So, Senator, do we have this right? The Democrat-led Senate rejected President Biden's student loan bailout, and then both the House and the Senate passed that debt ceiling bill that reinstates student loan payments that were put on pause. Is that right? Because, you know, there's a lot of complaints that the president is doing an end run circumventing Congress.
Well, that's exactly what happened. I think you saw a pretty stunning rebuke, a bipartisan rebuke of this really cynical policy of the student loan debt forgiveness scam. That's a slap in the face to working families. I mean, a lot of people made decisions whether to take on the debt, repay it, work their way through college, or make different decisions by way of a career or a trade that they went in and didn't accumulate that debt. This was nothing more than a cheap political stunt by Joe Biden that's very expensive. I mean, the price tag is $500 billion to $1 trillion. Now, we rejected that in the Senate, made its way through the House. We anticipate that the president will veto that. The good news, though, is there is a case. When I was AG before this job, we were the first to file a lawsuit against that scam, and that's in front of the Supreme Court. There's no basis for this. The president has no authority. No one person has the ability to do this, which raises that larger point you brought up, which is we've got to have structural reform on these executive orders and the administrative state. These things have to make their way through the Article I branch, the People's Branch, because as you saw just this week, the elected representatives rejected it, but yet Joe Biden did it during the middle of the campaign season.
Well, word is he's going to reject or veto, that the president will veto the Senate move. But again, doesn't this prove that the point that he unlawfully and unconstitutionally circumvented the House and the Senate with this bailout that many critics said was done to turn out the millennial vote in the midterms, that this was done to buy votes?
That's exactly right. And so it was illegal. There's no authority. There's no constitutional authority. There's no statutory authority for Joe Biden to go do it. He did it anyway. It's now in front of the Supreme Court. But it does prove the point, right, that on these kinds of executive actions, there needs to be real reform here, because if this actually had to stand the test of a vote, it wouldn't go anywhere. Same with ESG policy. Same way with the Green New Deal stuff that they try to push through administratively. We've rejected those time and time again, even in a divided government like we have right now. And so we've got to get away from this sort of administrative state running the show. Joe Biden has his thumb on the scale of all these policies that don't face the scrutiny of a vote by Congress.
You know, remember when Nancy Pelosi even said that doing a student loan bailout like this was an abuse of power? Watch this.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
You know, this rankles Americans who didn't go to college, who sacrificed to repay their loans, and it doesn't fix what's happening at the front end. Fat cat college academics doing tuition gouging, charging and racketeering in lockstep the same amount of tuition that always inexorably goes higher every year to pay for things like white elephant, you know, football stadiums or five-star cafeterias or tanning spas and the like. It's just not right what is going on at the college level, and literally the abuse of students who are not getting the education they need to survive in this world. They're being taught off-the-wall academic subjects that have nothing to do with what they need in the future.
That's right. Now, there's a lot of indoctrination happening. I know parents are often surprised at that, and college students are too. So we talked about the legal aspect, but you're right. There's a fundamental fairness issue here. There's no reason in the world why, you know, the truck driver or the waitress or somebody that's working that blue-collar job should have to pay for the, you know, the theater degree of a tenured college professor who didn't pay back their student loans. I mean, that's what this comes down to, as a fundamental fairness argument. If you look at the polling on this from the get-go, it's very unpopular. Again, it was a cynical attempt by Joe Biden to try to go out and get votes. This is now pending before the Supreme Court. It's been rejected by Congress. There's no reason he should have moved forward with this. He did, and we've got to rein that kind of unlawful action in, no doubt.
Senator Eric Schmitt, a pleasure to have you on tonight. We'll see you again, we hope. It's good to see you.
Good to see you again, too.
We're going to break.